Welcome to this session on SEZ, EOU, STP and EHTP schemes. SEZ is Special Economic Zone, EOU is Export Oriented Unit, STP is Software Technology Park, and EHTP is Electronic Hardware Technology Park. And these are all schemes which fall under the foreign trade policy, the schemes which have been envisaged by the Government of India to support, to give a big support to the exporters in India. So we're going to discuss in detail about the Special Economic Zone and Export Oriented Unit, and also about the Software Technology Park and Electronic Hardware Technology Park. Talk about schemes for encouraging export. There are many schemes. All nations encourage exports to counter adverse balance of trade. Same for India, same for USA, same for Bangladesh, same for Vietnam. And there are various schemes by Government of India to encourage exports, and these are mainly supported and supervised by Ministry of Commerce, because all exports and imports fall under Ministry of Commerce. And Ministry of Commerce, as an umbrella, it supports and supervises the activities by the various industries. There are individual separate EPCs for various categories. So EPCs are Export Promotion Council. So for apparel, we have Apparel Export Promotion Council. For handloom and handicraft, we have HHEPC, which is Handloom and Handicraft Export Promotion Council. So these individual councils, they look particularly into the category, formulate the policies, and envisage what are the other things which are required by the particular categories, the support which they require from the Ministry of Commerce. There are various types of export incentives for manufacturers. If you look at the list is exhaustive, and the number of benefits which the manufacturer is liable to get if they were to export is far more than any other industry getting any kind of incentive from the government for domestic operations. So meaning to say that exports is something which the Government of India requires, and that is why the exporters get the maximum benefit and incentives vis-a-vis any other domestic operator. Now, if we look at the various incentives, there are indigenous inputs without payment of excise duty. Now, what we're saying here is that an exporter can procure Indian-made inputs without paying the excise duty if the exporter wants to do that. No excise is charged on the final product. So when the exporter has converted the raw material into finished goods and is ready to sell to the international market, no excise duty is charged on that product, and therefore the exporter is able to sell the product at competitive prices in the international market. Exporters can also import inputs without payment of customs duty. Now, whenever an exporter imports any product from another country, then the exporter has to pay custom duty. But Government of India says that to a certain extent, there's a limit, there's a formula. Within that certain value, if the exporter imports the inputs for the purpose of using it in such products which will be finally exported, in such cases, the exporter does not have to pay any custom duty on the imported raw materials. Further, no export duty on export of final product. So there is no excise duty charged, there is no export duty charged. Excise duty is levied by the excise department. Export duty is levied by the customs. Both the excise duty and export duty has been removed from the exports, which is a great support to the exporter from the Government of India. And one of the best part is fast finance at concessional interest rates. There is Exim Bank specially for the purpose of giving financial support to the exporters. And the speed with which the applications of the exporter is processed is far greater than the speed with which any normal bank processes the application for loan in the domestic area. Sixth, exemption from income tax. So the exporters, they don't have to pay income tax, which is one of the largest benefit. And because there is no income tax, exporters are in a position to even reduce their margins so that they still remain competitive in the international market. And last but not the least, the government of India also exempts the exporters from the GST on final product. So exporters, they don't have to pay GST on the final product. It goes to the customs, does not the GST has not been paid, the exporter does not have to pay the export duty, and the product can be exported. In case the exporter has paid the GST on any raw material, then later on, after the export has been made, the exporter can take back that tax part, and that is called duty drawback. So that is something which is this feature, this scheme has been provided by the government of India. Now, if you look at the WTO stipulation, WTO World Trade Organization, it simply states that no country can give export incentives, meaning to say neither Africa nor USA nor India nor China. No one is allowed to give export incentives if you are a member of WTO, because WTO believes that if a country gives export incentives, it is going to skew the competitiveness in the global markets. But WTO does not say that the countries, the respective countries, they can forego the taxes. So which means, however, goods can be made tax-free for export purpose, meaning to say WTO does not have an objection on government of India WTO does not have an objection that India is removing all the taxes. So countries can remove as many taxes they want to, but they cannot give any export incentive. That is not allowed. And all export promotion schemes ensure that inputs as well as the final products are made tax-free. So that is what has been stipulated by World Trade Organization. So if you look at the input duty relief scheme, input is your raw material which is used to get the output, which is the finished goods. So the input duty relief scheme means the duty or the GST which is normally levied on the raw material, which will be then converted to finished goods. So if it is for the domestic market, there will be no incentives, there will be no relief. But if it is for export purpose, there will be so for export purpose, there are various schemes through which one can obtain the duty-free inputs or get refund later. Meaning to say, either you pay the taxes now and get the duty drawback later, or you simply do not pay any taxes on the raw material that you procure for the purpose of converting the raw material into finished goods for the purpose of exporting. So either ways, the exporter has the exporter can decide if they want to pay the taxes and then take it back, or not pay the taxes at all on the raw material. And there are some schemes, there are some such schemes in which it is necessary that the factory or the unit has to be isolated from domestic production units. So there are various areas, various regions which are open, and domestic productions can be done. Production can be done for the domestic market. But there are some schemes in which you will get the benefits, but the benefit will only be available if the factory is in a particular area. That particular area is, for example, special economic zone or export oriented unit or software technology park or electronic hardware technology park. factories in these areas, SEZ, EOU, STP, HTP, they have amazing benefits, but those benefits are not available to any such factory which is not situated in this particular area. So we're going to talk about all these four, EOU, SEZ, STP and HTP. First, we're going to talk about EOU and SEZ. Now, the highlights of EOU SEZ scheme is that SEZ unit has to be located within the specified zones developed in a particular area, which has a boundary to it. And there are about 114 operational SEZs and another 500 SEZs have been formally approved. They are in the process of getting developed. Export-oriented unit, on the other hand, that can be set up at any of over 300 places all over India. And these 300 places may not have any boundary. There can be open spaces, but they have been allocated, they have been earmarked as a region, an area for export-oriented units only. Further, similarly, software technology park and electronic hardware technology park units, these can be situated within SEZ, Special Economic Zone, or at any place where EOU can be set up, export-oriented unit. And if you are in SEZ or EOU, you don't have to pay custom duty on import of capital goods. Capital goods are like machinery and equipment, etc. You don't have to pay duty on raw materials. You don't have to pay duty on consumables, packing materials, spares, etc. You don't have to pay excise duty on the indigenous inputs. Meaning to say, you don't have to pay custom duty on whatever you're importing. You don't have to pay excise duty on any of the inputs that you're buying from the domestic market. And one good part is you can also import second-hand capital goods. Now, everyone knows second-hand capital goods. Second-hand is cheaper. And earlier, Government of India did not allow import of second-hand machineries. Today, it is allowed, and Government of India has allowed even import of such second-hand machineries which are just 1 year old. That is also allowed, duty-free. But there is a condition. Government of India says that the factories which are going to import these capital goods and things like that and not pay any duty, but they will have to achieve positive NFE, which is net foreign exchange earnings, meaning to say that whatever you are exporting and whatever you are importing, the value of exports should be more than the value of the imports. So NFE, net foreign exchange earnings, should be in the positive. A is your FOB value of exports and B is CIF value of all imported inputs and capital goods and all payments made in foreign exchange. Whatever payment that you make out of your pocket for the money which is being spent abroad or being paid to the provider of machinery and raw material, etc. All that, the entire value is B. A is the value of the exports which the exporter is realizing from the client, and this is the FOB value, which is free on board. Now, free on board means if a factory is in Delhi and the factory is sending the goods to France via Mumbai port, Jawaharlal Nehru Port Trust or Navseva port. So in that case, FOB value is the amount of money being charged by the exporter to the buyer at the port, meaning to say that the amount of money being charged by the exporter for the product and for the transportation from Delhi to Mumbai and for the custom charges and other things, clearance and other things. So that value is called FOB. So the calculation of net foreign exchange is in terms of FOB value of exports minus CIF value of all imports. Now, if NFE is not achieved, if for some reason, just like we have COVID-19 right now, if for some reason the net foreign exchange is not positive, somehow the exporter is not able to achieve that, then the exporter will have to pay the duty whatever duty was supposed to be paid under normal condition by the domestic operators, the exporter will have to pay the duty and will also have to pay the interest on that duty for the amount of time the exporter has not paid the duty on the machinery. If you are able to achieve the net foreign exchange positive, then you don't have to pay the duty. It is free. But if not, then you will have to pay the duty and the interest on the amount of duty that the exporter did not pay. If you look at the highlights of EU SEZ scheme further, in case of EOU, you can be a part of EOU only if there is a minimum investment in plant and machinery and building. Altogether, it should be at least 1 crore. And this investment should be 1 crore before the start of the production, not after the start of the production. So before you begin production, at least 1 crore should have been invested in the plant and machinery. That is a requirement. But in case of special economic zone, there is no such limit. And the best part about EOU or SEZ is that no physical supervision is done by the customs or the excise authorities over the production or the clearance. No one is going to check your production. No one is going to stop your shipment. It is automatically cleared. But the government says you have to maintain the records as prescribed by the government. You have to do that, so that at any given point of time, if anyone comes as a surprise check, then the record should be ready. In case of EOU, there is fast track clearance scheme, FTCS, for clearances of imported consignments, meaning to say, if you are an exporter and you are an export oriented unit, then in that case, if you are importing anything, then whatever is coming in your name, it will be immediately cleared at the customs. But in case of special economic zone, if you have imported something, it will come to the customs, and the customs is not going to stop it. The product will come, or the shipment will come straight to the special economic zone. In the special economic zone, there is an office of the customs which will do the clearance. So which means that if you are a factory in special economic zone, your shipments do not get stuck at the customs. It comes to the special economic zone, and there the clearance will be done. So in your area, when the clearance is being done, you can get the clearance done easily, and it is there in front of you. Now generally, all final production should be exported, except rejects up to a prescribed limit. Now, in both case of EOU or SEZ, one rule is that whatever will be produced in the EOU or SEZ, all of that has to be mandatorily exported. Of course, the exception is you made 100 pieces, 3 or 4 or 5 pieces they got rejected because of some flaw. Now you cannot export that. So in that case, the government gives you up to a certain limit. The government allows you to not send those products. Otherwise, whatever you make has to be exported. It cannot be sold in the domestic market. And if at all, if you have to sell within India, then it has to be sale within India should be on payment of excise duty, which is equal to normal custom duty if imported. Meaning to say, you have imported some material to make 100 shirts. You were able to make 95 good shirts, 5 shirts got rejected. Now you want to sell that 5 rejected shirts in the domestic market. So in that case, the amount of fabric which has been consumed in those 5 shirts, for that amount you will have to pay the excise duty, which you did not pay because you were a part of EOU or SEZ. So because these 5 shirts have been rejected and now you're going to sell it in the domestic market, you will also have to pay the custom duty which you did not pay, and that custom duty is equal to the excise duty. There are times when there are exceptions. In certain cases, excise duty payable is 50% or 30% of normal customs duty applicable if goods are imported into India. So there are some products in which the government says that you don't have to pay 100% of the normal duties. If let's say the duty to be paid is 10%, so instead of 10%, the government may ask you to pay 5% or 3%. So there are certain exceptions. And if you see this slide number 46, you'll realize that Government of India, Ministry of Commerce has deliberated at a very micro level, and based on that they have formulated the policies. Now in case of EOU or SEZ scheme, the Government of India also allows subcontracting subject to the permission on annual basis. Subcontracting is, you are in SEZ or EOU, government says you have to produce everything within the area. Now let's say you're a factory, you have the manufacturing facility, you can manufacture shirts, but you don't have the embroidery unit, and you cannot afford to have an embroidery unit. Every year hardly 4 or 5% of the orders are related to embroidery, so you don't set up an embroidery unit because of these 5% orders. Now what do you do? How do you do the embroidery? So you want that you should be allowed to subcontract it so that someone else does it. So if you are a part of EOU or SEZ, you just have to take the permission and you can subcontract. So you can subcontract in the sense that you can outsource, let's say, cutting of the fabric or stitching of the fabric or maybe washing of the fabric. So that is subcontracting. Job work for exports is also permitted. Now, job work is when we are talking about embroidery or some kind of scalloping or some kind of value addition. So you are allowed to outsource some of the major activities in apparel manufacturing. You are also allowed to give out job work, which is embroideries or other small things. Third point is samples can be sold or given free within prescribed limit. Now, as a garment exporter, you will be making a lot of samples. You will be selling it. You will be sending it to your clients, based on which they may be giving you orders. Now you make a lot of samples, and the orders that you get is very less. So whatever leftover samples you have, what do you do with that? You can't just throw them away. So for this, the government has specially allowed that the exporter can sell the samples or can give it free within prescribed limit. So every year you can send let's say 100, 200, 500 samples to the client for free, or whatever samples you are left with, you can sell it in the domestic market. You don't have to destroy it, or you don't have to just store it. And the fourth point, unutilized raw material that can be disposed of on payment of applicable duties. Now this is again, you let's say ordered 100 meters of fabric, you used just 95 meters and you were able to complete the shipment. Now you are left with 5 meters. Now what do you do with this 5 meters? So there is a provision that whatever raw material you are left with, you can sell it in the domestic market, but you will have to pay the applicable duties. Another feature of EOU-SEZ is that the unit can exit or debond with permission of Development Commissioner on payment of applicable duties. Meaning to say that you can leave EOU or you can leave SEZ just in case you feel that export market is not doing good and you're not interested in exporting anymore. So you can simply exit. The unit can exit or debond with the permission of Development Commissioner on payment of applicable duties. You pay the applicable duties, and now you become a factory which is not a part of EOU or SEZ, and you can do the manufacturing for the domestic market, or you can do anything that you want to. So you can exit or debond yourself. And in case of EOU, if you are part of EOU, then in that case you may buy the raw material, in which you may pay the GST, and later on you can get the refund from the Development Commissioner. But in case of SEZ, you don't have to pay GST at all. So if you look at this particular aspect, then SEZ happens to be a better option than EOU. And both for EOU and SEZ, the prescribed percentage of foreign exchange earnings can be retained in EEFC account in foreign exchange. 100% foreign equity is permissible except in a few cases. Now, this is something that we are going to discuss in other sessions. Here, what we are saying is that suppose you have sold exported goods worth $100. Now, the buyer has made the payment, so $100 is going to come to your account. Now, an exporter is allowed to open a current account, a normal business account in India. The exporter is also allowed to open an exchange earners foreign currency account. This account can only be opened by an exporter, and you can take the payment in this particular account. And as a very big exporter, you can keep 100% of your foreign exchange in the original form, which is dollar or euro. And whenever you want to use that currency, you can use it. The day you want to get it converted into rupees, you can get it done. It is entirely up to your discretion. The smaller export houses, they are allowed to keep only 50% of the foreign exchange in the original form. The rest 50% will be automatically converted into Indian rupees and transferred to your current account, the regular account. And factories in EOU SEZ, they are also allowed to keep 100% foreign equity, meaning to say that 100%. If you are able to find a foreign partner, then that foreign partner can invest 100% in your factory. This is allowed, except in a few cases. Foreign company participation is not allowed where sensitive products are made or anything which may endanger the national security. In that cases, foreign equity is not allowed. Otherwise, 100% foreign equities are permissible, meaning to say you are opening the factory and 100% of the money has come from a foreign partner. Now we are on slide number 50, and we are discussing the highlights of EOU SEZ. Now, supplies made to EOU by Indian supplier are deemed exports, and supplier is entitled to benefits of deemed exports. So there is something called real exports, and there is something, so that real export is called is just called exports, and there is something called deemed export, meaning to say that it is deemed as exports. So anyone, a domestic supplier of raw material, of zipper, of button, of fabric, of any other thing, of machinery, these suppliers, when they are supplying to a factory which is in EOU to an exporter, then whatever is being supplied to these exporters, that will be deemed as exports, and therefore the supplier will also get benefits of deemed export. Now, if you are exporting, you get export benefits, but if you are supplying to the exporter, then you also get some. Then whatever you supply to the exporter is deemed as exports, and therefore you are also entitled to some benefits. Now, supplies to SEZ are exports, and all export benefits are available. Now, export benefits are higher than the benefits for deemed export. So a supplier supplying to the exporter in EOU will get the benefits of deemed export, but a supplier to SEZ is going to get all the export benefits. So this is again a plus point for being in SEZ. And then there is a restriction under Companies Act in India that a top manager of the company cannot be paid more than 20 lakhs per month. Now this is the restriction by the Companies Act. But in case of factories which are there in EOU or SEZ, this restriction is not applicable. And also there is no restriction on external commercial borrowing. Now, external commercial borrowing means if you borrow money from the international markets That is called external commercial borrowing. Now, a domestic company manufacturing for the domestic market, they do not have the permission to take external commercial borrowing. But here, the factories in EOU or SEZ, they do not have any restriction on external commercial borrowings. So these are some of the key highlights of EOU SEZ scheme. And now let's look at how do EOU and SEZ compare with each other. So far, what we've discussed is the common features of both EOU and SEZ. Now we're going to see the differences. Now, if you see EOU versus SEZ, EOU is more flexible than SEZ because there's a wide choice of location. EOU unit can be set up at any place declared as warehousing station under Customs Act, and there are 300 places. And EOU can be set up even within a part of the factory, thus saving considerable cost. Meaning to say, there is a factory in that area which has been declared as warehousing station, and within that factory you can set up an EOU, and within the same factory certain portion of the factory can be used even for producing for the domestic market. So imagine you have a factory in which half of the factory is EOU and half of the factory is a regular factory which is producing for the domestic market. And even use of common utilities is possible. Meaning to say, you have one factory, one half is working for exports, one half is working for domestic market, and both of these activities can use common utilities. Common utilities can be washing, can be canteens, can be dry cleaning, or any other utility which is required by both the parts of the factory. So EOU is very flexible. In case of SEZ, if you are a factory in SEZ, only export activities are allowed, no domestic activities. Now imagine if export orders dry up and there is no export order coming in, what do you do? So you feel that you want to get out of this thing and you want to start producing for the domestic markets. So in that case, you have to debond or exit. Now as an EOU, you simply have to convert your EOU to a DTA unit. DTA is domestic tariff area, which is an area which is for the like any other normal unit which is working, which is producing for the domestic market, which is not an exporting unit. So converting of EOU to DTA unit by exit or debonding is comparatively very easy. You simply give it in writing that I do not want to export anymore, I do not want to be part of the EOU. You give it to the development commissioner, you pay the applicable fees, and there you go. Your factory has become a normal factory operating in India, producing for the Indian markets. But in case of SEZ, if you want to exit, you will actually have to physically move out of the zone, of the special economic zone. So that is going to be a pain. So that ways SEZ is not, it's very, very rigid. It's not as flexible as EOU. But on the other hand, if you look at SEZ, the infrastructure that is available at SEZ unit is way better than EOU units. The infrastructure, the roads, the lighting system and everything available for EOU units are substandard as compared to the infrastructure available at SEZ. So that's one plus for SEZ, and the other is that the custom clearance for exports happens within the SEZ, the special economic zone. Meaning to say, let's say you are in Chandigarh, and let's say Chandigarh has an SEZ, special economic zone. Now if you want to export, you will have to send the goods to Delhi or Mumbai, where you have the customs, and it will be custom cleared, and then it will be exported. But if you are in an SEZ in Chandigarh, then when you are exporting, the custom clearance is going to happen within the special economic zone itself. It is cleared and now it is straight away going either to the Mumbai port to go by sea, or it will go to the Delhi airport to go by air. So custom clearance happens within the special economic zone, not outside. So makes life fairly easy to handle. And so last but not the least, schemes like EOU or SEZ, they are suitable only when you as a factory, you are predominantly export oriented. Only then you should get into, or you should think about placing yourself either in an EOU or in an SEZ. And if you have to buy a lot of imported capital goods and raw material for the purpose of exporting, in that case you should be in an EOU or SEZ. Otherwise, you can be a factory in places like Okhla, industrial estate, so many industrial areas. So a lot of industrial areas are there where you can set up your factory. But those are not EOU or SEZ. The specially earmarked places for EOU SEZ are the places where you will get all the benefits of EOU or SEZ. So if you are predominantly export oriented, or if you have to buy a lot of imported capital goods, machinery, etc., and you're doing, let's say, jackets and suits for someone like Hugo Boss and Ann Taylor and DKNY, where you have to buy a lot of raw material from Italy, from China, from Turkey, from other places, then you should be a part of EOU or SEZ. So with that said, we come to the last section of this session, which is STP and EHTP unit. STP is software technology part and EHTP is electronic hardware technology part. Now, the concept of STP, EHTP is similar to EOU, SEZ, and this is obviously administered by Ministry of Information Technology, because it's all related to software or electronic hardware. And STP or EHTP unit can be set up as an EOU unit anywhere in India, or as a SEZ unit at specified developed locations. And a software development firm qualifies as STP or EHTP unit. So when you're talking about placing yourself in STP or EHTP unit, only those firms which are related to software development or making of electronic hardware, only they can be a part of STP or EHTP. And you can import goods on loan from clients for a specific period. A lot of these software technology companies, when they take very big assignments, big orders from their clients, they may not have those powerful servers or those softwares on which the work has to be done. So the client may themselves give the hardware or the software on loan. So you as a software company, you are allowed to import goods on loan. And goods on loan means you have imported it now, but at a future date you are going to give it back to the original owner. So that is importing goods on loan. And you can also export software electronically or through physical transport. So the best part about software is you can send it via internet or through secured servers and things like that. That is electronic. And you can store it in a device and then physically export it. Either ways. But in both the cases, you should be informing the government that I had got this order, I have made the software, or I have made whatever, and now I'm sending it either electronically or I'm sending it physically. That has to be informed to the government, and when you get the payment, you also have to inform the government that you have received the payment. And what are the activities allowed in STP, EHTP unit? Exports of professional services are allowed. So you could be an architect or a designer or a computer-aided designer or something like that. You can give these professional services to your international clients. So that will be exports of professional services. Development of computer software is allowed. Data entry and conversion, that is allowed. Data processing, analysis and control, that is allowed. Data management is allowed. And Best part, call center services are also allowed in STP EHTP unit. So there's a fair amount of advantages that accrue to the companies which place themselves in the EOU or SEZ, and as a software company you place yourself in STP, or as an electronic hardware company you could be in EHTP unit. So with that we come to the end of this session, which talked about the foreign trade policy, the various books which are part of the foreign trade policy, the objectives of foreign trade policy, and the various parts of the foreign trade policy, the key highlights of SEZ and EOU, and a brief on STP and EHTP unit. So with that we come to the end of the session. Thank you.